When I was in high school, maybe 15, I used to babysit to make some extra money before I got my first real job. One particular night stands out in my memory more than any other. It started like every other evening gig. Parents heading out for a night on the town, the promise of pizza delivery, and the easy comfort of a warm house. It was autumn, I think. The kind of chilly night where the wind rattles the trees against the siding, and the sky looks dark and bottomless. Lily, the little girl I was watching, was 5. Sweet kid, shy, a little too quiet. We were curled up on the living room carpet, surrounded by VHS cases, watching Beauty and the Beast. The glow of the TV flickered across her small face as she dozed off and on. At some point during the movie, the doorbell rang. One single sharp chime that made Lily flinch awake. I remember thinking it was probably just the pizza, but when I checked the time, it felt too early. I tiptoed over to the front door, stood on my toes to peek through the tiny, smudged peephole. But I didn't see anyone, just the warped shadows of the porch light, playing tricks on the concrete. Curious, but not yet afraid, I opened the door. A cold gust pushed past me into the warm house. There, on the doormat, was a small pile of papers scattered like they'd been dropped in a hurry. The top sheet fluttered as if it were breathing. I knelt to gather them up, my hands trembling slightly as I shut the door behind me. Back in the kitchen, I sat at the counter with a stack. They were drawings, childish, scribbled in crayon and marker. Each page showed Lily and another figure, sometimes a stick figure of a man with 2 long arms, sometimes just a black, lopsided shadow standing behind her. One drawing had the words, "Your secret admirer," scrawled in shaky letters that trailed off the page. The last one was just a crude face with wide, empty eyes, like a skull, but smiling. I tried to brush it off as some prank. Maybe a neighborhood kid had a crush on her. I showed Lily, but she barely looked. She just flipped through them, shrugged, and wandered back to the living room to bury herself under a blanket. I stacked the papers neatly and left them on the kitchen counter, then sat beside her again, trying to let the movie drown out the sense of something wrong. When the credits finally rolled, we got up to order the pizza. But when we stepped into the kitchen, my heart dropped. The front door was wide open, creaking slightly in the wind. Muddy boot prints snaked from the entryway through the hallway, ending right where the stack of drawings had been. They were gone. The mess was small but felt huge, the footprints looking darker than they should in the soft kitchen light. I slammed the door shut, locked every bolt I could find, and scolded myself for not locking it in the first place. Lily just watched me, her small hands clutched around a corner of her blanket. We cleaned the muddy trail as best we could and finally ordered the pizza. I tried to make her laugh about it. Probably just the wind, right? That her smile never reached her eyes. About 10 minutes later, there was another knock. This time softer, almost polite. I froze. Pizza forgotten. My stomach tight. I crept to the door and cracked it open just enough to peek through. Standing there in the dim porch light was a tall, rail-thin man in filthy, oversized clothes that looked like they'd been pulled from a dumpster. His coat sleeves hung past his wrists, stained with something dark. His head was slightly cocked to one side, and his eyes, God, his eyes, were too wide and too dark, as if they had no light to reflect back. They looked wet and empty, like the eyes of a doll that had been left out in the rain. He smiled, or at least his mouth moved in a way that should have been a smile. Hi. Yeah. His voice was high-pitched and soft, almost sing-song. It made the hairs on my neck stand straight up. Can Lily come out to play? He leaned into the doorframe, so hard that the wood splintered with a low crack. His gaze darted past me, over my shoulder, searching for her. I mumbled something, trying to close the door, but he pressed harder, his shoulders hunching forward like a wolf about to pounce. Please, I want to play with Lily. Please, let me in. Please. His voice cracked, childish, pleading. The way he shifted on his feet reminded me of a little boy about to throw a tantrum. I slammed the door against his weight, deadbolted it, and grabbed Lily's tiny hand. She didn't even ask questions. She knew. We hurried to her room, the only one with a lock. I dialed 911 with trembling fingers, whispering that someone was trying to break in. The operator told me to stay calm, that a unit was nearby. That's when the shattering glass echoed through the house. The kitchen window, I think. It was sharp, sudden, and the silence that followed was worse than the noise. I shoved Lily under her bed and climbed into her tiny closet, the slatted doors letting in stripes of pale moonlight. I held my breath as I heard him moving through the house. Slow, deliberate steps, drawers opening, cupboards slamming shut. He was humming to himself now, that same childish tune, stopping every few beats to call out, "Lily, where are you? I brought you something. It's so nice. We're gonna play." His footsteps paused outside her door. The knob jiggled violently, then pounding, fists hitting the wood so hard the hinges rattled. His humming turned into frustrated whimpers. I could hear him sniffling, like a sad child. Then he started to cry, soft at first, then wailing. The sound made my skin crawl. The door cracked, then splintered. He shoved it open so hard it banged against the wall. I peeked through the slats of the closet, barely able to see him as he crawled on all fours toward the bed, his back hunched, his shoulders trembling. He was whispering to Lily. His voice was wet, snotty, and I caught fragments. So pretty, so nice. Come with me. Lily's scream tore through the room as he grabbed her ankle and yanked her out by her hair. He moved awkwardly, like his joints didn't bend the right way. Then the distant wail of sirens drifted through the broken window and the man froze. He let out a sound, a mix of a growl and a sob, and then dragged Lily through the shattered hallway and out the back door, disappearing into the dark yard. I stayed in that closet until a police officer's voice finally coaxed me out. They led me through the house, and it looked like a storm had torn through it. Every cupboard emptied, drawers overturned, furniture broken apart. It was as if he'd been looking for something or someone for a very long time. Outside, I saw the trail of muddy footprints leading into the woods behind the house. Lily's parents arrived just as my mom did. There was so much shouting, crying. I just stood there wrapped in a blanket staring at the trees. They found him in the woods later that night. He was developmentally disabled, a grown man with the mind of a child. His mother was an addict who had left him to roam the town like a ghost no one wanted to see. As I grew up, I tried to remember him as less of a monster and more of a tragedy wearing a human shape. I never knew what happened to Lily. My mom tried to tell me once, but I didn't let her. Even now I can't bring myself to look her up. I'm too afraid to know the truth. Sometimes I still dream about him, those wide, wet eyes and that broken child's voice echoing through the dark. Can Lily come out to play? I was 25 when this happened. I'd finally moved out of my parents' house into a small 2-bedroom flat, one town over, in an area with a reputation for being a little rough around the edges. Honestly, it wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. I kept to myself, didn't cause trouble, and the block of flats was quiet most nights. I lived on the ground floor, which made moving in easier, but always left me with a nagging worry about the windows. Mostly the worst I'd hear was the echo of drunk people stumbling out of the pub next door, their laughter drifting through the walls at 2 a.m. But after a few months, something shifted. Little things started happening. So small at first I thought I was imagining it. It was summer, so I'd always leave the window open in the spare room while I was at work. I worked nights then, long shifts from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. I liked coming home to a cool, breezy flat, but every now and then, I'd come home on a day off and find the window wide open. Even when I knew I'd shut and locked it. There were the noises too. Strange thumps and scraping sounds at night, soft enough to dismiss, but persistent enough to make my stomach knot. I told myself it was just the upstairs neighbor. I mean, old buildings creak, people drop things, pipes knock around. But I've had anxiety since my teens. Once my mind locked onto a noise, I couldn't ignore it. I'd prowl the flat at 3 a.m., phone torch in hand, opening every cupboard just to be sure. By the time this all happened, I'd worked up a routine. I'd check every lock before bed, wedge the windows shut, and keep a hammer in the hallway cupboard, just in case. It was a Saturday night, my weekend off. I remember this detail so clearly. I was on the sofa, stoned, wrapped in a blanket watching Halloween 2. I'm a horror fanatic. That franchise is my comfort watch, ironically. The flat was dark, except for the flickering light of the TV. Outside, the wind rattled the bushes, and every now and then I'd hear a bottle clink in the alley. I was halfway through the film when I heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps, not above me, inside. I paused the movie, heart pounding in my throat. For a moment, the silence pressed in so thick, I thought I'd imagined it. But then, another footstep. A soft creak, a tiny shuffle that didn't belong. I clicked on every light as I crept from room to room. I checked the bathroom, the kitchen, my bedroom, empty. But when I reached the back bedroom, my chest went cold. The window was open again, the curtains swaying slightly in the night breeze. I slammed it shut, turned the latch, and stood there, staring at my reflection in the glass. "It's the weed," I muttered. "It's the film. Chill out." I went back to the sofa, grabbed my blanket like a shield, and pressed play. Not 10 minutes later, the thumping started again, heavier this time. Footsteps, but not careful. Dragging, stomping, as if someone didn't care if I heard them. A cold, prickly feeling crept over my skin. This wasn't the upstairs neighbor. This wasn't the building creaking. I grabbed the hammer from the cupboard, flipping it in my sweaty hand, and went back toward the spare room. The window, open again. Wide open. The night air rushing in like a breath from some giant thing lurking outside. I could feel the draft hit my face. I stepped back into the hallway, and that's when I saw him. A man. Just standing there, half hidden in the shadows between my bedroom and the bathroom. He was tall, 6 feet at least, and strangely well-dressed. Not what you'd expect from someone sneaking in through a window. He wore a crisp shirt tucked into dark trousers, like he was on his way to a wedding that never happened. But his eyes, they were the worst. Wide, unblinking, bulging like a doll's eyes cracked too wide. He stared at me with this awful calmness that made my stomach flip. His right hand was buried deep in his pocket. I could see the glint of something shiny, something that caught the hallway light for a split second. We stared at each other, frozen, like mannequins. I could feel my pulse in my teeth. Finally, I asked, voice trembling so much it hardly sounded like mine, Who are you? How did you get in?" He threw his head back and laughed, a shrill, broken sound that bounced off the walls and made my skin crawl. Then he took a step toward me, pulling his hand free. A Stanley knife. The blade looked impossibly small in his long, pale fingers. I stumbled back into the spare room, clutching the hammer so tightly my knuckles ached. He kept coming, that awful laugh bubbling out of him, knife raised just enough to show he wasn't afraid to use it. My brain went blank. Fight or flight had already made the choice for me. I hurled the hammer, missed completely, and felt myself slam back against the door. I was trapped. My phone was on the coffee table, useless. He hit the door once, a sharp, booming kick that rattled the hinges, then again, harder. Each hit sent splinters fluttering down onto the carpet. I could hear him breathing, panting like a dog, giggling every time the door cracked a little more. I knew I couldn't stay. I spun toward the open window. The same cursed window that had let him in. It was my only chance now. I braced myself, took a running start, and threw my body through it. The glass screamed around me, tiny shards biting into my arms and back. I tumbled onto the damp grass outside, adrenaline drowning out the sting. Behind me, I heard the crash as the door finally gave way. His heavy boots pounding toward the window. I didn't look back. I ran barefoot, glass crunching under me, straight toward the front door of the block. I could feel him close behind, the sound of his ragged breath, the faint, metallic clink of the knife against his belt. My hands fumbled with the fob. I slapped it against the panel. The green light blinked. The lock clicked open just as his shadow fell over me. I threw myself inside and slammed the door. I heard his shoulder slam into the other side, felt the echo vibrate through the metal. He roared, an animal sound, wordless and furious, then spat curses through the glass. I could see him pacing, his face twisting in the dim glow of the hallway light. Then he turned and stalked back toward the rear of the flats. I forced myself to breathe. I had one chance. I raced back into my flat, grabbed my phone off the table, ignoring the blood dripping from my elbow, and bolted back out. I locked the door behind me with shaking hands, dialing 999 as I slumped against the corridor wall. I must have sounded like a lunatic. My voice was barely a whisper as I told the dispatcher there was a man in my flat. He had a knife. I thought he was gone, but I didn't know. They told me to stay put. An officer was on the way. That's when I heard it. The handle on my front door rattling again, then pounding, savage and relentless. His voice, shrill and raw, screaming my name, screaming something. I couldn't even make out the words. Then the glass pane cracked. His arm shot through, my hammer in his hand. He'd found it. I pressed my back against the corridor wall, trapped again. If I ran, he'd crawl through the broken window and be behind me before I hit the street. All I could do was wait. Finally, red and blue lights washed over the walls. The police buzzed in, and I stumbled to let them through the main door. They didn't need directions. The man was still hacking at my door with my own hammer, howling like a rabid dog. They grabbed him by the arms and I cracked the door just enough to see them wrestle him to the ground. He fought like an animal, thrashing, shrieking, his eyes rolled back. It took 3 of them to drag him down the hall, his screams echoing off the concrete walls. After they took him away, the officers searched the flat. They lifted the carpet in the back room and found what he'd hidden beneath my floorboards. A machete, a hunting knife, rope, duct tape, bottles labeled chloroform, sealed in plastic bags. He'd been coming and going through that window for who knows how long, building a nest for whatever nightmare he'd been planning. I spent the next week at my dad's house while they replaced my front door. I still live in that flat. I don't know why. Maybe it feels like I beat him at his own game by staying, or maybe I'm just too stubborn to leave. But now, every window is locked and bolted. I check them every hour like clockwork. And for once, I'm grateful for my anxiety. It made me listen, made me check again when someone else might have brushed it off. I never found out what happened to him, the man who laughed like a child in my hallway. I don't want to know. I just want to forget he ever crawled through my window. But every time I hear footsteps in the night, I remember his eyes, wide, unblinking, hungry. Some nights, when the wind rattles the glass just right, I swear I hear his laugh echoing down the hall, and I check the window. Every single time.
I got the first message 3 days ago. I was on my break at work, sitting in the break room, half dazed, half bored, scrolling through my phone to kill the last 10 minutes. When the text notification popped up, it struck me as odd immediately. The sender had no number. Not unknown number, not a jumble of digits, just a blank space where a number should have been. Usually, that meant spam or some scammy promo, so I almost swiped it away. But something about it made me pause. The message was short, just 3 words. Hide and seek? I actually let out a small laugh. It felt so absurd that someone would send that to a stranger. I typed back, half amused and half annoyed. Think you have the wrong number. Not sure who you're trying to reach, but they're not here. I put my phone away and finished out the shift without thinking much of it. But later, as I clocked out and stepped into the dark parking lot, I checked my phone again and froze. Another message was waiting. Same blank number, same question, but this time stretched out like it was breathing. Hide and seek? I stood there for a moment, the glow of the streetlight flickering overhead. My skin prickled in the night air. I typed back, more irritated than before. Like I said, wrong number. Who is this? Who are you trying to reach? I stared at my phone for a moment, waiting. For a second, I imagined I could feel the phone buzzing even though it wasn't. Then, a reply. You, hide and seek. That was enough for me. The sense of unease that crept up my spine made my hands shake a little as I hit block number. I didn't know if blocking a blank number even worked, but the thread vanished and I felt a strange sense of relief as I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. The drive home was uneventful until my phone pinged again. I was sure it was that message coming back to haunt me, but it was just Mike, my roommate, asking me to pick up more beer. I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. Mike had this uncanny talent for drinking the last of anything: beer, juice, milk, and then acting surprised when there was none left. I used my car's text-to-speech to respond as I merged onto the freeway. "I'll get some this time, but you better start paying for it, if you're going to keep drinking it all." I pulled into a run-down gas station on the edge of our block and grabbed a case of Miller Lite. The night felt heavy when I stepped back outside, like the air had grown thicker. I shook it off and got back behind the wheel. My phone buzzed again as I pulled out onto the street. I muttered, "What now?" and waited for the robotic voice to read the message. But it didn't say what I expected. "Seek drink?" My throat went dry. My palms tightened on the wheel. I felt a chill run through me, despite the fact that my car's heater was blasting. It had to be Mike messing with me, right? I dialed him immediately. He answered after a few rings, his voice slow and slurred. "Hey, man, you got the beer?" "Yeah, I got the beer." "Are you messing with me, Mike? How did you send those weird messages? The hide-and-seek crap? You using an app or something?" There was a pause, like he had to sober up just to process what I'd said. "What? No, dude. Who wants to play hide-and-seek? That's trippy. Just get home, man. My buzz is wearing off." He hung up. I pulled into our driveway with my heart hammering in my ears, half expecting to see someone standing in the shadows. But it was just our little run-down duplex, the porch light flickering as always. Mike greeted me at the door by snatching the case of beer from my hands, cracking one open before he even made it to the couch. He didn't even look at me when he said, "Cheers." I didn't bother pressing him again. He looked too baked to hold a conversation, let alone plan some elaborate prank. I grabbed my own beer, retreated to my room and shut the door. Maybe I was being paranoid. Just another weird scam or someone trolling me. But as I sat on my bed, the phone buzzed once more. The same blank number. The message this time felt like a threat. Almost time, hide or seek? A shiver ran through my whole body. I typed back, fingers trembling so badly I had to correct myself twice. "Stop. Whoever you are, stop messaging me. I don't want to play. Leave me alone." I hit send and slammed the phone down on my nightstand. For good measure, I blocked the number again and turned the phone off entirely. Maybe it would be enough. I didn't know how this was happening. Blocked numbers weren't supposed to slip through. I lay down, trying to convince myself I'd laugh about it tomorrow. But I couldn't stop thinking about the way the messages felt. Not just words on a screen. They felt like someone whispering in my ear. At some point, I must have drifted off. Because the next thing I knew, someone was knocking on my door. The sound made me jolt upright, my heart pounding. I heard Mike's voice, muffled and slurred. "Hey, man. I don't know what the hell, but someone's trying to get you. They sent me a freaky message, too." He cracked the door open, eyes bloodshot and confused. He shoved his phone at me. I looked down, hoping it was a dumb joke. Instead, it was worse. "Last chance. Hide or seek." It felt like a drop of ice water hit the back of my neck. I asked, "When did you get
about this?" Mike shrugged, scratching his hair. "Dunno. A while ago." "Who wants to play hide and seek?" I didn't answer him. I turned my phone back on, hoping I'd imagined it all. But no, there it was, waiting for me like a spider in its web. "Okay. You hide." My vision tunneled. My hands went numb around my phone. Mike was saying something behind me, but I barely heard him. Then the lights went out. The sudden darkness swallowed the room, thick and absolute. Mike's voice rose an octave. "Dude, what the fuck?" Then the front door creaked. Slow, deliberate, like it was being pushed open, inch by inch. I knew I'd locked it. I always locked it. I crouched down, my whisper barely audible over the pounding of my heart. "Hide." I crawled under my bed, shoving myself as far back as I could. I heard Mike stumbling toward the closet. A slam, the soft click of the door, then silence, broken only by a strange, slow shuffling sound. The temperature dropped. It felt like winter had settled in my room. My breath puffed out in faint white clouds. I smelled something then, rancid, wet, earthy, like rotting leaves and something worse underneath. Heavy footsteps entered the room. Each one made the floorboards creak in protest. My mouth went dry. I pressed my hands over my nose to keep my breathing silent. The footsteps stopped. A wet, dragging sound slid across the carpet, like something was being pulled along the floor. I heard a soft, horrible sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a growl, and then the faint creak of the closet door. For a second, there was nothing. Then, the door splintered with a violent crack, and Mike screamed. A scream so raw and broken it cut through me. It ended as suddenly as it started. No struggle, no shout for help. Just silence, swallowing everything. I stayed under the bed for what felt like hours. Every muscle locked in place, ears straining for any sign of movement. But there was nothing. Eventually, the lights flickered back on, buzzing like a dying fly. When I finally crawled out, my legs gave way under me. The closet door was torn off its hinges. Splinters scattered like bones across the carpet. But there was no sign of Mike. Not a drop of blood, not a sound. Just the empty, cold air that felt too heavy to breathe. I called out his name, my voice echoing in the empty hallway. I checked every room, every corner, every stupid hiding spot. He was gone, as if he'd never existed at all. It's been days now. No sign of Mike. No trace of forced entry except the broken door. The police don't know what to make of it. A missing persons report, sure. But what good would it do? Who would believe what really happened? Tonight, as I sit in this half-lit room, staring at the hole where the closet door used to be, my phone buzzes once more. No number, just a single line. Hide and seek? My hands are trembling so hard I can barely type. I should run. I should destroy the phone. But I can't help myself. I type one word. Seek. And now, I wait. Somewhere in the darkness, something moves. The game has started again. At the outset, I should tell you I'm a thief. Not the classless smash and grab type who tears a display case open and runs off with his arms full of jewelry. Nor am I some grubby pickpocket lifting wallets on the subway. Those guys are amateurs, No finesse, no patience, no code. I'm a cat burglar. Fourth generation. My father was one, my grandfather was one, and his mother was one, too. For my family, it's tradition. We're very good at it. If we've done our job right, you never even realize we were there. I know most people find my work deplorable. I'm fine with that. I could give you the old Robin Hood speech about how the system robs from all of us and the rich use their wealth to control us. I could. But that's not really why I do it. I steal because I'm good at it. And because it's what my family raised me to do. That's reason enough. Being a cat burglar isn't just about breaking into a house and emptying the safe. That's the fun part, the ice cream, as my father called it. But the real work happens long before that. My dad used to say, being a thief means being prepared to be bored out of your mind. He wasn't wrong. About that, anyway. He was wrong about plenty else, but not that. When you choose a house to hit, you have to do your homework, stake it out, learn who comes and goes. Who does the yard work? When do the trash guys show up? What about the mail? Is there a nosy neighbor with binoculars? You have to sit in your car for hours, doing nothing but watching shadows crawl across the driveway. Boring as hell. Veg before ice cream, boy. Veg before ice cream. That was Dad again. He'd say it every time he parked his ass on the couch with a sleeve of Fig Newtons before dinner. Annoyingly, he was right. You plan for everything. Does the housekeeper ever come back at odd hours? Does the dog walker forget something? You learn the security system, too. Most of these big, fancy houses come with top-of-the-line alarms. But people don't like paying for monitoring fees after the first year. They keep the sign out front to feel secure. But the real protection? Dead as last week's flowers. Why? Because the rich live in bubbles, and the rich are cheap. The night I did the Ashcroft job, I felt ready. I'd cased the place for weeks. I knew when the Ashcrofts left for the club, when the Uber picked them up, how long the ride would take. I knew which window would be easiest to get through, where the master bedroom was, and how many steps creaked on the grand staircase. I even wore my lucky shirt. Soft black cotton, old but reliable. Fat lot of good that did me. Once the car rolled away, I gave it 30 minutes. Never trust a car to stay gone. A valet might return a forgotten purse, or a kid might show up unexpected. You plan for stragglers. When I was sure, I moved. The best part of these big houses? Most second-story windows are unlocked. They think no one's dumb enough to scale the wall. They're half right. You have to be dumb and patient. Hanging from a downspout that felt like it would break off any second, I eased myself onto the balcony, tested the window. It popped right open. Inside, the house was museum quiet. I pulled my moccasins from my pack and slipped them on. They're soft, silent, worth their weight in gold on hardwood. I padded to the master closet, or as I called it, the shrine to wealth. Half of Rodeo Drive was in there. I found the jewelry on a marble-topped vanity. 3 boxes. I picked the first. Jackpot. Brooches, antique pieces. Ugly as sin, but the kind of ugly that fetches big numbers if you know the right people. But I also knew better than to be greedy. I'd learned that the hard way. Take only 2 or 3, never the statement pieces. You want pieces that blend in, that don't get traced. As I sorted, one caught my eye. A silver shape, a triangle inside a pentagon, studded with tiny diamonds. It felt wrong the moment I touched it. Too cold. My skin prickled. Something told me Not this one. I set it back carefully. Sometimes you just know. I was just about to finish when my penlight flickered. I tapped it, an old nervous habit, and in the vanity mirror, I saw her, a figure, pale, standing by the window I'd come through. I spun around. Nothing there. Heart pounding, I turned back to the mirror, and she was closer. In the doorway now, watching me. Again, I turned. Empty air. But my throat felt tight. Then I heard it. Footsteps in the hall. A door slammed. Someone was home. Or something. I dealt with plenty of dogs, night owls, even angry drunks who'd come home early. But this was different. This felt wrong. Cold air poured from the closet behind me. Dad's voice echoed in my head. If you like cardboard tubes or lubed-up dudes, jail's the bee's knees, Brian. He told me that when I was 8. Some lessons you never shake. I moved for the window. The drapes rustled in the night breeze, an open invitation. But then I heard a window slam shut, somewhere else. Footsteps pounded down the hall. Another door slammed. I froze. The curtains stopped moving. My exit was gone. Panic rose in my throat, but I forced myself to finish the boxes. Always clean up your prints. Leave nothing behind but questions. Then, the front door below slammed open. A man's voice roared up the stairs. "I know you're up there. I saw it on camera, you whore." My gut twisted. He wasn't talking about me. I slipped behind a rack of suits, pressing my body into the velvet darkness. Through the hangers, I saw him. Older, heavy-set, face stretched too tight from bad surgery. He stomped into the bedroom, ranting into his phone. "Pete, it's under control. No family connections, I told you. The gathering is ready." He peeled off his tuxedo jacket, like he was about to change for something or someone. I didn't dare breathe. Then, movement. The figure again, by the closet door. Closer than before. A shape made of shadows and bone, watching the man. Then turning its empty face toward me. I shut my eyes. The air turned to ice. When I looked again, it was gone. The man ranted and raged about bloodlines, sacrifices, deals struck generations ago. He didn't see the shadows gathering behind him, but I did. A floorboard creaked. He turned, and the figure was gone. He stormed down the hall, hammering on doors. Somewhere, a girl screamed. The hidden room behind the closet held what he'd really wanted to hide. A panic room, with monitors on every inch of the house. And under the bed, her, a girl, no older than 20, bruised, filthy, branded on her hand, the same triangle inside a pentagon. Her name was Inez. She'd been taken, to be offered up to something. When I whispered that I'd get her out, she just looked at me, with eyes too old for her face, and said, "No, I have to finish it." She hadn't been praying for rescue. She'd been praying for revenge. The house began to shake. The walls rattled. A voice rose from the floorboards. A shriek that felt like it would split my skull. "Don't look at it," she whispered. So I didn't. What I heard was enough. bones snapping, screams cut short, walls splintering like rotted wood. I smelled fire and blood, and something older than either. When it ended, the closet door swung open, and what was left of that bastard was dragged inside, into the place he'd used to hide his treasures. A fitting tomb. Inez and I crawled out. Smoke stung my eyes. The house was burning from the inside out. At the window I paused. My bag felt too heavy on my shoulder. The brooches, a handful of glittering sins. I pulled them out one by one. The triangle inside a pentagon brooch was somehow back in my pocket. I hurled it into the flames, then the rest. Some things are cursed the moment you touch them. We climbed the fence, melted into the night. A block away, neighbours gathered, drawn by the glow of the burning mansion, blind to what they'd never see. At my car, Inez sat on the curb, hugging her knees. She looked smaller now, human. I asked her what she'd promised it. She didn't answer, just gave me a thin, broken smile and touched my shoulder like a blessing, or a warning. Then she stood and walked off down the street, barefoot and alone, carrying whatever she'd unleashed. Dad's voice echoed in my head one last time. When you got what you came to get, you leave. I had, just not what I'd planned on. And sometimes that's worth more than anything you could ever steal. It had been 10 years since I was last home. 10 years since I last walked through the large blue door with the faded welcome mat out front. They tried to resell the house after we left. Well, forced out would be more accurate. But they never could. It's kind of hard to sell a house with the stigma of a suicide attached to it. For a decade, I've been haunted by that day. The day my father ended his life. The day my mother lost her mind. And the day my brother came back from the dead. My brother Max had disappeared during the last few days of his camping trip. He'd gone to a camp called Camp Manatari, right outside that weird little town called Sleepy Falls. One of those tiny colonial towns that never make it onto any map. You'd only ever find it if you'd been there before. Or if someone who knew the way showed you. When we got the call that Max was missing, we drove the 4 hours to Camp Manatari to help in the search. My dad stayed silent the whole trip. And so did I. The only sound was my mother's occasional sobs, her whispered prayers. My baby boy, we'll find you. When we reached Sleepy Falls, we cut through the market district, the fastest route to the camp. Shopkeepers and shoppers alike stepped out of their stores to watch us drive by. No friendly waves, no polite nods. Just that cold, unsettling stare. I remember visiting Sleepy Falls when I was a kid, but something about this place always felt wrong. The air felt heavy, like it was pressing secrets into your skin. At the camp, we were greeted by a tall, skinny man, with greasy dark hair cut into a bowl cut and thick-rimmed glasses. He looked too young to be in charge of anything. Hello, my name is Simon. I'm one of the counselors here. You must be the Turners, he said, extending his hand. Grant, my father said stiffly, shaking his hand. This is my wife, Nicole, and our daughter, Riley. Simon gave my mother and me an awkward smile, then focused back on my father. We're doing everything we can to find Max. The local sheriff and his 2 deputies are assisting in the search. That's it, I snapped.
Just the sheriff and his 2 lackeys. Where's the state police? The FBI? This is my brother we're talking about. Riley! My father barked. His voice thundered through the trees. He was never a loud man. When he raised his voice, it meant shut up.
Simon's smile stayed frozen on his lips. The town prefers to keep this localized. But don't worry. We have the counsellors and volunteer campers helping too. We'll help too, my father said. My mother just nodded, eyes glazed. We were all ghosts already. That night, the search dragged on. We combed the woods in shifts, one party searching the thick trees, while the other rested back at camp. I was on the night shift with my dad and Simon. We found nothing. No torn clothing, no blood, no sign that Max had ever been there. The forest felt older than time, suffocating and alive. When we finally came back to switch, the sun was just peeking through the treetops like an eye cracking open. "Coffee?" Simon asked, holding 2 battered mugs. "Sure, thanks." I took the blue cup. The coffee was burnt and bitter. He stared at me for a moment, squinting like he was reading my soul. "Can I help you with something?" I asked. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to stare." "No, I'm sorry. That was rude." I sighed. I felt stupid, raw and exposed. Simon seemed only a couple years older than me. Maybe he was scared too. Maybe he had a younger brother he'd die for. Maybe he'd die instead. "You from around here?" I asked. "Yeah, I live in town with my uncle." "That town always so unfriendly when people pass through?" He laughed nervously. "We don't get a lot of outsiders. People get curious." Curious. That wasn't curiosity I saw. That was the look you give someone trespassing on cursed ground. "So you must know these woods well, huh?" "Not really. The woods always change after summer." "What do you mean?" I asked. But his eyes darted away. "It's just a saying. When the seasons change, so do the trees. Every tree looks the same." His laugh sounded hollow. Before I could push him further, one of the deputies burst out of the woods. "We found something." My dad was up in an instant, staggering on sleep-starved legs. "Show me." They found Max, what was left of him. The coroner said exposure, hypothermia. They found him naked, face down in a shallow creek. They said people undress when they freeze to death. His back was torn wide open, spine exposed. Some of his organs were missing. They blamed scavengers. The drive home was quieter than the one there. My mum didn't make a sound. Her eyes were dry and wide, staring at ghosts only she could see. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip my heart out. My father stared out the window the whole way, a statue made of grief. A few weeks later, we buried him. Open casket. They did a good job. He almost looked like he'd just wake up, grin at me and say, "Gotcha." But he never did. I missed his laugh. I missed him more than I could hold inside me. At the funeral, Benny, a short, round kid with a fresh crew cut, shuffled up to me. "Hey, Riley. I'm really sorry." "Hey, Benny. Didn't recognize you. New haircut?" "Yeah. Mom said long hair wasn't appropriate for a funeral." He brushed his scalp with his fingers. "I fucked up!" Benny started to sob. "If I hadn't had summer school, I could have been there with him. I could have watched his back." I pulled him into a hug, patting his back. He trembled like a kid lost in the dark. Then I felt it, something pressing against my leg. Ew. Benny, what the fuck? "Sorry, I've never been hugged by a girl before. Not one who wasn't my mom." It's okay, I muttered, but I couldn't stop shivering after. Back home, my dad locked himself in the den. He took his meals in there, barely came out except to piss or shower. My mom cooked all of Max's favorite meals on repeat, scrubbing the kitchen until her hands cracked and bled. She started sleeping in Max's room, hugging his pillow, crying into it at night. Sometimes I wanted to run away, just vanish. But I stayed. A week passed. One morning I was lying on my bed, headphones in, staring at my cracked ceiling plastered with old band posters. Then, a loud pop from downstairs. My heart dropped into my stomach. I ran. I found my mother in the kitchen, on the floor, holding something. It was Max, or something wearing Max's skin. His skin didn't fit right, hanging loose like wet laundry on a line. It wasn't him, but it was smiling. "What the fuck?" I screamed. I bolted upstairs, slammed my bedroom door. My hands were shaking as I grabbed the cordless phone. I dialed 911. Between the rings, I heard it. The tiny click. Max used to eavesdrop that way. 911, what's your emergency? Please, I need help. 3230 West Holly Long. What's happening? My brother. He's downstairs, but he's dead. He's supposed to be dead. My father shot himself. Please, help. Ma'am, repeat that. Your father shot himself? Yes. No. That thing. It's not my brother. Help, please.
Ma'am, is this a prank?
Help! There's an intruder. He shot my dad. He's with my mom. Help! I hung up. They'd come. They had to. Then, a soft knock at my door. Riley, let me in. Let's watch cartoons together. Its voice was almost right. But it wasn't. It was hollow. Wrong. I crept to the window, slowly pried it open. Riley, Mom made pancakes. Come down. I started climbing out. I heard my door splinter behind me. Boom. Boom. It cracked like old bone. Halfway down, I jumped. Thorns and brambles tore my arms as I hit the bushes. I couldn't go through the front. I needed a weapon. I slipped through the study window and found my father. Mouth open. Crown of bone and blood splattered behind his head. His 1911 lay on the floor, next to a mountain of crumpled suicide notes. He'd been planning this. That thing pushed him over the edge. I spotted the shotgun in the cabinet. Dad taught me to shoot it, said it was the best for home defense. I loaded 3 shells of buckshot, 2 slugs, 1 in the chamber, shoved more shells in my pocket. I crept into the hall, past my parents' room, past the kitchen. Mom was still there, frozen, whisking at empty air. Mom, we have to go. Now. Oh, hi, Riley. I was about to make pancakes for your brother. Tell him to wash up, okay? She smiled with eyes that saw nothing. Fuck. I climbed the stairs, shotgun ready. My door was blown apart, empty. Max's room, empty too. The TV flicked on downstairs, volume blaring cartoons.
I crept down. Mom was still there, stirring nothing. In the living room, the thing sat on the couch, head cocked, eyes black and blassy. "Is it time for cartoons?" it asked. Max's voice, but wrong. I raised the shotgun. It turned its head slow as an owl and grinned with borrowed teeth. I fired. The slug ripped the top of its head. It shrieked, skittered up the wall and onto the ceiling. Its limbs twisted like gnarled branches, joints bending backward. I pumped the next round, fired again, center mass. It fell on me, pinning me under its reeking, sap-oozing weight.
Its mouth split open like rotting bark, rows of bony teeth inside. Tendrils split from its fingers, brambles wrapping my leg, inching toward my hip. I reached for the shotgun. Too far. I braced, shoved my body back, skin tearing as it held my leg. My fingers brushed the gun. I grabbed it, racked it. The thing's maw yawned wider, dripping black sap. Memories of Max flickered in my head. His laugh, his smell, his goofy grin. I pulled the trigger. Point-blank buckshot tore through its face. It shrieked, flung itself back, crashing through the living room window into the night. Sirens wailed down our street. There was no explaining what happened. The police didn't believe me. Just teenage hysteria, they said. Trauma, grief. My mother never recovered. They put her in a home. I was supposed to graduate, go to college. Instead, I got evaluated. PTSD, depression, maybe bipolar. They said I was a danger to myself. I kept my mouth shut about what really happened. I didn't want to end up like Mum. I still visit her sometimes. She always says the same thing. Tell your brother to wash up for breakfast. So why am I here? Back in this house, this graveyard of memory. Part of me hopes that it's still here, waiting. But really, I came for the shotgun I hid in the loose floorboard when the cops came. I could buy another gun, but this one means something. I don't know what that thing was. Skinwalker, shapeshifter, something older. But I know where it came from. The woods, near Sleepy Falls. That place always bothered me. It's time to go back.